So Danny had stalked and harassed Ronnie online and off for about 15 years, which makes a lot of sense because I've known about my stalker for at least about 4 years now, more than half of his life. His stalker had used a variety of methods: phone, text, email, Facebook, other social media, updating his tactics with every advance in technology. In the last 3 years, he'd also sent dozens, probably hundreds of letters, emails, Facebook and Twitter messages about him, about Ronnie, to his family, to his friends, to his employers, to his friends' employers, to professional organizations and political offices, including the state attorney general of New York. And Ronnie knew this because Danny sent him copies of the letter. All right, so Ronnie had gotten used to ignoring Danny's harassment and had been advising others to do the same. But for some reason, this last contact seemed more serious than what he had been enduring from Danny before. It looked like at this time, Danny had stolen his identity and was posing as him to his friends online. So Ronnie immediately called Apple and started digging through Google's help pages to figure out what had happened. As it turned out, his accounts were secure and he changed his passwords anyway. Danny was spoofing his email using a software program impersonate him online. Spoofing is very easy to do and is often used in phishing scams. Okay, here's a little bit of the backstory. He and Danny met at camp in 2001 when he was 12 and Danny was a couple of years older. They became friends and talked occasionally during the school year. Their conversations frequently involved Ronnie reading Danny excerpts from the Cosmopolitan's Guide to Horoscopes, a book that Ronnie was obsessed with at the time. But as soon Danny was calling him practically every day, and Ronnie started to ignore his calls, finding it easier to ghost Danny than to confront him directly. Danny didn't take the hint. Ronnie blocked his number, and like everyone in the early odds, he was, at some point, he must have given Danny his screen name. They chatted on and off through high school, but he blocked him there too eventually. So he got a Facebook account in 2006, and Danny found him again, and not wanting to be rude, he accepted Danny's friend request. He said that Danny often sent him rambling accounts of his day-to-day life. Ronnie said that he usually didn't respond, but sometimes he messaged back if he was bored or lonely. Ronnie didn't think much of Danny's behavior until one evening during his sophomore year of college. He met Danny when he was 12. He was leaving the library when he saw Danny standing outside. Danny handed him the latest Red Hot Chili Peppers CD and asked if they could eat dinner together. Ronnie panicked. He hadn't seen Danny since middle school and didn't want to see him then. But he also didn't want to hurt Danny's feelings, and he felt touched by his gift. So he took him to the cafeteria and made awkward conversation until he faked an excuse and left. Okay, so after that incident, Danny cut off contact, After that incident, Ronnie cut off contact, figuring Danny's fixation would dwindle with time. But his Facebook messages only seemed to increase. An almost daily barrage of friendly, if disjointed missives responding to Ronnie's status updates or providing commentary on Ronnie's political beliefs, job hunts, or other aspects of his life. Ronnie went on to say that the last time he talked to Danny again was in 2012. All right, Danny's messages had ramped up to a maniacal rate every few hours for about 3 days straight, unreciprocated, with no end in sight. Ronnie caved and sent him a message asking him to please stop messaging him so much or he'd block him. Okay, good luck on your quest. Danny wrote him back. He thought that was easy. Then Danny sent 3 more angry messages in quick succession, and then he got blocked, right? That is when everything changed. Instead of his typical ramblings, Danny started calling Ronnie names, insulting his Jewish nose, making thinly veiled threats to ruin his career. Ronnie filtered out Danny's emails and blocked his text messages, but some of his communications always seemed to slip through as Danny contrived new usernames and methods to harass Ronnie. In 2013, Danny sent Ronnie's parents a letter detailing his recent activities. So, he was just trying to ruin Ronnie's job, ruin Ronnie's life, ruin Ronnie's reputation, just really being menacing and just letting Ronnie know every fucked up thing that he had done to try to ruin him. And, he actually had people questioning Ronnie. So it got to the point where Ronnie said he had gotten to where he was fielding multiple inquiries about Danny monthly, like from employees and acquaintances and friends and everybody else. And Ronnie said he explained the situation and advised them to block and ignore his messages. But most people were understanding, but it was embarrassing to explain. 2 more years passed before he decided to take legal action. And, he said he felt weird for waiting so long. And he said that his friends and family had been encouraging him to go to the police for years. But by that point, he had regarded Danny as annoying, just an annoying fact of life. And, a few other kind of names, And anyway, he didn't want to get him in trouble, but he obviously had a problem and needed some therapy, he thought, right? So, and then Ronnie also had doubts about the police, and as sometimes do we all. But impersonating him by spoofing his accounts was just too much. And Danny had also started harassing his friends and pretending to be Ronnie on several occasions, and just trying to hack into friends' accounts. And he felt bad because his friends had suffered because of his inaction. But as he read, he learned that his non-response hadn't been entirely off base. So according to the online guides, like those provided by advocacy groups like Working to Halt Abuse Online and the Stalking Resource Center, after clearly telling the cyberstalker or harasser to stop, do not engage is rule number 1. But if the cyberstalking escalates or persists, the next step is to report the crime to the relevant authorities. Cyberstalking is a big deal. And Ronnie is far from the only victim. And so am I. A Pew survey from 2014 found that 1 in 4 young women report having been stalked online. Men can be victims of cyberstalking too, but the majority of victims are women who tend to experience particularly severe harassment online, according to the survey. Just about everyone has been name called or subject to some other sort of verbal abuse online. But women are the predominant targets of sexual harassment and the sustained abuse that constitutes cyberstalking, typically considered the most serious form of internet harassment. Women have been growing more vocal about the treatment they receive online, and in particular about threats of violence. Cyberstalking describes a pattern of behavior intended to harass and intimidate over an extended period of time. Most cyberstalking victims also know their stalker, who may be anything from an acquaintance to a former romantic partner, and who often sabotages the target's reputation as a way to exert control over the victim. But according to Ms. Anne Franks, a professional at the University of Miami School of Law and an expert on cybercrime, there's a very long history of trivializing the harms that are done to women specifically. And that includes everything from domestic assault to rape to stalking. And the first anti-stalking legislation passed in California in 1990 after a series of grisly cases ending in murder raised public awareness about the crime. And within 3 years, all 50 states had anti-stalking laws. And in the early 2000s, states began updating their laws to add cyberstalking. Stalking laws, again, across the U.S. are uneven. For instance, in New York has some of the better anti-stalking legislations in the country, and so does Florida, but others offer only piecemeal protections. But federal law under the Violence Against Women Act is more inclusive, and in fact will cover practically every instance of cyberstalking reported, multiple experts have told me. But while the federal cyberstalking law is stronger, many people just don't think that cyberstalking is real. And those who do recognize it, they tend to blame the victim, or offer small and insignificant solutions. Any kind of dismissive attitudes towards cyberstalking, and especially any kind of cyberstalking but ghost stalking, as we're talking about, those attitudes are pervasive throughout all levels of law enforcement. In recognition of this state of affairs, in December of last year, the Office of Violence on Women, a branch of DOJ, issued a statement calling out gender bias in policing of sexual assault and domestic violence as a serious problem in law enforcement. Gender bias often manifests as police officers misclassifying or underreporting crimes inappropriately. So, there's a lot going on, and we just don't know, what people go through. So, yeah, that's our episode for tonight. I'm not going to hold you guys, but I would just like to know what you think about this cyberstalking. What do you think? What do you have to say? Have you ever been the victim of cyberstalking? Do you know someone who's ever been the victim of cyberstalking? Now that you've heard, what I've said about cyberstalkers doing things like spoofing their victims' emails and taking their identities and pretending to be the victims, and so that they can send messages to family and friends and having them looking at the victim sideways and crazy. What do you think? Does that ring any bells? Does that tug at any memories of any strange emails or text messages that you may have gotten about someone or even yourself that you weren't aware of? You just thought maybe it could have been a mistake. I don't know. Let me know. Let's talk about it.
Things that I've been through, kids that I've been through.